welcome to another episode of Human First, the Roadmap Writers podcast. I'm Gabriel Tice, Roadmap's Director of Digital Marketing and Brand Management.
I'm GT Cruz. I am the head of Roadmap's TikTok.
And I'm Nicole Betts, writer and Sprouts Vitamin Clerk.
Also, you survived, what was it, the flu, a cold?
I don't know. Probably like a cold. It wasn't the flu. I'll know when it's the flu because I'll want to die. But I think it was just like a bad, nasty cold. So much for vitamins working.
Yeah.
Not a big selling point to you. You're being a vitamin clerk.
I know. Well, all these customers come in sick now. I'm just like, stop it. Send the DoorDash
Go
person.
away.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I miss the era of masks sometimes.
People are still wearing them. They are.
Maybe in Holly woke, but outside of that, it's kind of the wild west. This was a really fun episode to plan because our guest reached out to us originally to ask us to publish an excerpt from his latest book, which we'll talk about as a blog on our blog section, which if you haven't checked out Roadmap's blog section, do yourself a favor. We have interviews with our success story writers. We have guest blogs from industry veterans, people with amazing careers who share a lot of really great content with us. So that blog came out like a week before we launched our first episode, and then he reached back out and inquired about coming on the podcast. We're talking to Phil Stark. He's a screenwriter, author, and a licensed marriage and family therapist. His credits include South Park, That 70s Show, and he's the writer behind Dude, Where's My Car, the famous stoner comedy from 2000. It's been 25 years now, which that was something I did a double take at. And now he's writing books on how to be a screenwriter from a mental health angle. He recently wrote a book, How to Be a Screenwriter, which he describes as part craft guide, part survival manual, and part therapy session. Had me thinking, if Dude, Where's My Car came out in 2000, what was the last big stoner comedy? The last big studio stoner comedy?
Jordan Kumar, maybe?
That was after, right? That was 2004?
6 or
No,
7.
I think it's something. It's some Seth Rogen comedy. It's
Seth Rogen.
yeah.
I'm gonna dispute this. I think Seth Rogen.
I think it's a Seth Rogen.
Here's the thing about Seth Rogen's his early years. I feel like his comedies had a stoner tone, but I don't think they were stoner comedies. You know?
I disagree. Definitely stoner comedy.
Yeah.
I think a stoner comedy has to. I think the protagonists have to be propelled by their cannabis use throughout. I don't think they can just be stoners. Is this a controversial take?
So you think that the plot has to revolve around? So would that take Harold out of the running? Because
I will say I'm so sorry. I will say I think the very last one is This Is the End. It's that Seth Rogen apocalypse movie. It was 2013. There's stoner people in it. I'm sure I don't remember the actual details of it, but I'm sure there was drug use in the movie.
Which is all well and good, but
definitely
like in Dude, Where's My Car? Like the reason they don't know where their car is because they're potheads, right? Stoner comedy. And this is just screenwriting 101, people. Like
yeah.
This is called structure. Okay.
No, to make a stoner comedy, you have to take a stoner and then you put them through a series of events that any normal person would be able to sort of think their way through. But since they are inebriated or stoned or they are just space cadets in some way, the stakes keep escalating in these fumbles of trying to get from point A to point B. So that was your Pineapple Express. That was your This Is the End. Dudes, Where's My Car?
Pineapple Express, I'll give you that, especially
Yeah.
because of the James Franco character. That could be the last one that made a huge cultural impression.
Wasn't there just one with two chicks?
Oh, and Kiki Palmer?
One of them days. Now, are they? Or is that just a buddy comedy? Are
I
they?
think
Are
that's
they?
just a buddy
I
comedy.
think it's a buddy comedy, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Never mind. Okay.
No, I will accept Pineapple Express. I think Harold and Kumar qualifies
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
because it's all about the munchies for them.
yeah. And they
Yeah.
smoke weed out.
The Pineapple Express was 2008. Harold and Kumar was when? 2004.
Poor
So
cheap.
Pineapple Express, if we're going by
Hard rules.
Maybe we can just
Gabe's
go.
arbitrary rules.
I
Yeah.
knew the word arbitrary was going to come up, but I stand by this. I mean, if you want to include that whole Judd Apatow era in this package, what I will say is that was a winding down, like a transition out of
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
because
Judd Apatow was more highbrow stoner comedy.
Yeah. Yes.
Can't you tell we're all writers here? Look at that wordplay. The thing I like about stoner comedies, as I think we understand them, like the Cheech and Chong, which I also should have mentioned, Phil published a retrospective of Dude, Where's My Car recently in the Hollywood Reporter. So after listening to our conversation with him, also check that out too. It's a really interesting breakdown of, making the film, looking back on it, seeing how it's aged, how the comedy has aged. But stoner comedies were like surreal odysseys into kind of transcendental situations. You know what I mean? Like they were almost
Gabe busting out his thesaurus here.
they were almost Lynchian, and I don't really know if they qualify as Lynchian, but you know what I mean, right? Like there was a difference between that and the like couple of bros taking bong hits, trying to figure out what they can turn into a bong type of like bantery, light, soft laughs. Is that fair? Is that a fair distinction?
Are you saying that's what they've transformed into, or that is what they
the Judd Apatow era represented
okay.
a transition moment.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
By the way, I think we're all wrong. I think there's a huge movie that we're not mentioning. I don't know if it's huge, but it's got two notable people in it. Mac and Devin go to high school. Do I need to tell you both who plays Mac and who plays Devin? That was a vehicle for Wiz Khalifa and Snoop Dogg. It came out in 2012. So
Milanakis.
I don't even know if it was like publicly released. I've only heard rumors about it. It might be like the day the clown cried. Like I don't know if it's publicly available.
2012. It's on Tubi.
Okay.
What's funny? Those two movies are just in a vault somewhere.
But both equally culturally significant, I'm sure.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think we have answered that question to the best of our abilities. And now it's time to bring on our guest.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've got one last thing to throw in. I guess Cheech and Chong's last movie came out in April 25th of 2025. So that
Wait,
I think that yeah.
We got
with special 420 screenings. So that would have to be the last great stoner movie to come out.
I don't count that. That is a legacy stoner movie. I'm talking
that
about
is the ultimate stoner movie.
It's
I
don't know. I'm not
convinced. If they came out recently, then that counts. That counts as what is the last stoner movie that came out? Cheech and Chong.
Yeah, okay, it counts. But again, do you think it's a cash grab of sorts?
I don't know. I'm not questioning the integrity of Mr. Cheech or Mr. Chong. I just
that or not. Watch your tone.
I'm talking about original projects, right? It's like asking what was the last great space opera, and you say uh, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Like, that's misleading, and no, on a more subjective level, no. But we're trying to talk about new, fresh ideas that kept the genre evolving, right?
Gabe,
We didn't
Gabe,
even know
Gabe,
it came out.
Gabe
So
keeps Gabe keeps moving the goalposts here.
I hear what he's saying. Like we didn't even know it came out. That's how like nothing it was. I mean, to us, I feel like if it was a cultural phenomenon that was new and fresh and
Clearly, you guys aren't stoners.
did you know it came out?
I had to be reminded it came out, to be honest. But I remember seeing the adverts for it.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
as an uncorrupted person myself, I was not privy to the knowledge. I'm acting like some kind of authority on stoner cinema. Uh, I have barely gotten my feet wet in that genre, and you guessed it right,
Mhm.
GT. I am not a stoner, although and I don't know if this story will make the
Though
recording.
I have had contact high
I
like when I was 18, right?
a
That's what that's coming from.
a gentleman approached me on public transit back in 2017 and proceeded to confess about how he nearly beat his friend to death the night before. And I was like, sorry, man. Is there anything I can do for you, friend? And he was like, man, if you could just hook me up, with some weed, that'd be great. I was like, I can't do that for you. I'm sorry. He's like, are you telling me you're not a stoner right now? I said, no. And I just have never seen somebody's mouth so agape in my life. So
why?
uh,
Why do you assume that? Your hair or something? Why do you?
I don't, I used to wear a lot more baggy graphic tees
Oh,
back in
okay.
the day. So I think I was like
Hmm.
coding a stoner. I mean, I clearly was to this gentleman who I hope is doing okay and is not beating people nearly to death anymore.
So you should have ran away, not asked him if he needed help.
I was trapped on a metro rail. I
That's fair.
would have liked to have bolted as soon as he mentioned the battery and assault. But yeah, I made it out there alive. I think you can attest that to my pretty amazing people skills. Like, look at the way I de-escalated that situation.
Hmm.
That's true.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
I mean, to be fair, I thought you were a stoner when I first met you too.
and
I think it's the hair.
I think that's racist. This I gotta call it like I see it. I just think that's racial profiling.
Probably.
So I think now we've tossed out a few answers. If you have an opinion on this, audience, please comment. Let us know. Let us know who you think is right. Uh, and if I win, I'll ask for a vacation or something. So we're gonna we're gonna bring on our
Right.
guest, have a fruitful conversation about stoner cinema, and then some. Like maybe we'll touch on mental health and things like that. But first, we have to hear a word from our sponsor, who is us. Hi, everyone. Happy Black History Month from us here at Roadmap Writers. You're invited to join us at our 5th annual Black to the Future event, a week-long virtual celebration of inclusion and representation for Black screenwriters. We'll have panels with reps, producers, and screenwriters, concluding with a pitch showcase. It starts on February 23rd, so make sure to sign up with the link in the description. So, Phil, when we booked you on the podcast, it didn't even occur to me that this is the 25th anniversary of Dude, Where's My Car?
Yeah, I think it didn't occur to a lot of people until I pointed it out.
Does it feel like 25 years to you?
No, no, it seems like just yesterday, but at the same time, uh, it's that duality of life, right? The days are short and the years are long, or the days are long and the weeks are short. Whatever. It feels like both a long time and not so long ago.
How
And
long has it been since you lost your car?
all the time, man, all the time. I was in Texas over Thanksgiving, and my daughter and I went somewhere and I parked, and then I came back out and I always, if ever I'm with my daughter or my girlfriend or my mom, anybody I'm with who says anything along the lines of where do we park, I always have to correct them and say, no, 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 no. It's dude, where's my car?
Right. Like they have to get it right.
Right.
Like
I think that might be the last film that I can think of where the title was the seller. Like, dude, where's my car is
Well, yes,
the
but
selling point.
Snakes on a Plane,
Oh, is that
Right.
which is
after?
which is
true.
one of my favorite
True.
titles of all time. Snakes. I mean, that's what's the movie
Yeah,
about? What's it
one
called?
of the
Snakes
best
on,
quotes of
right?
all time.
I would love to kind of go through your screenwriting career beat for beat, starting with South Park, because you credit that as the starting point for your screenwriting career. Is that what you would say?
Yeah, that was the first time I ever got paid for writing. Um, I got that job because a friend of mine from college uh, worked for Brian Graydon, the executive who had Matt and Trey create the original Spirit of Christmas video card, VH tape, whatever. How it was actually on videotape back then. And when they got the pilot deal with Comedy Central, she became their assistant. And then when the series got picked up for at least the front six or the first six episodes, she got me a job as a PA. Actually, not even a PA. I was a runner,
Mm.
and my job was to drive post production tapes and stuff back and forth between like the lab and the offices. So when I got promoted to PA, I was thrilled. It was a big upgrade for me.
To get a morale boost from being a PA is that's a really healthy perspective, a healthy outlook to have.
Yeah, yeah. And then I was a PA on the show, but my friend knew I wanted to be a writer, and she had relayed that to Matt and Trey. And when they got this pickup for these first however many episodes, Comedy Central said, okay, well, here's how you do it. We're going to send you a bunch of scripts. You're going to pick a bunch of writers. We're going to put together a writing staff, and then you're going to meet, and then you're going to create, this is how it's done essentially. And they were like, okay. And I was sort of in on those conversations, and I was sort of like, I would be tasked with like, let's find a house to rent for a writer's retreat and that sort of thing. And I went to Matt and Trey. I said, "Do you guys have a writer's assistant?" And they said, "No," because they didn't even know that that was a thing because they'd always just done things on their own. So I finagled my way into being a writer's assistant, and I took all the notes for that breaking of those stories, and they were assigned to various writers, and then Matt and Trey were going to write some on their own, and then as another part of my job as a PA was to drive Matt or Trey where they needed to go if their car wasn't available. And I think I was driving Trey to get his car out of the shop or something. And I was just making small talk, and I was asking him how he was writing the Halloween episode, and he says, well, I'm so busy I haven't had a chance to finish it. And I said, well, I have all the notes from that, and I know how it ends. And we talked about like this, that, and the other. He's like, oh yeah, yeah. Okay, go ahead, take a pass at it. I had the files. I was the writer's assistant. So I finished the draft and I turned it in, and they liked it enough to be like, you know what, let's give you some notes and then do another pass. And I did another pass, and they liked it, and then they produced it, and then it aired. And the day after it aired, the producer was fielding calls from agents, smart agents who were on the ball, who were calling and saying, "Hey, who's this Phil Stark guy, and does he have an agent? And can I talk to him?" And the producer would say, "Well, no, he doesn't have an agent. He's great. You're going to love him. You can't talk to him now because he's driving to Burbank with post production stuff. But when he comes back, I'll give you the message." So that was my big break. The tough thing about getting representation as a writer is often that you need the job. Like the best way to get an agent is to get a job. And in my situation, I got the best job on the hit show and had plenty of meetings with agents. So it worked out really well for me.
From there, you joined that '70s show.
Yeah, from there, I didn't. after the first season of South Park, it became clear to Matt and Trey that they didn't need to do things the typical Hollywood way. They were not going to have a writing staff with 6 writers and break stories and assign them and manage it. They were going to write the episodes themselves whenever and however they wanted to because that's their method. So I was really bummed not to go back to writing on South Park, but I was thrilled to get a job on this show that was a guild show, a network show. The money was amazing. I had my own office, all this, the trappings of a real like network comedy writer. And actually, the writers on the show, there was ended up being represented by the same agent, many of them, a couple of them, anyways. So the guy who was a little bit more experienced than me got a meeting on a show called Jesse, which was Christina Applegate, uh, post Friends time slot, 13 guaranteed, like all systems go. And I was really bummed that I didn't get that job. The job that I got was on a Carsey Werner show, not even part of the Fox studio system, on this new network, semi-new Fox, at a time slot that they didn't know when it was going to be on, with no recognizable stars, and it didn't even have a title. And the irony in this business is that you never know what's going to be a success. And that show ended up going 8 seasons, and I grew up on that show. Where Jesse, I think it like went 13 and not. Love Christina Applegate. That just didn't happen to work. But you really never know. And I was very lucky again to land in a place that not only was a wonderful job with great people and a great learning experience, but it was very successful.
And you were on all 8 seasons?
Yeah.
Wow, that's even cooler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rep you. So how did you decide who was the person that you wanted to go with?
Well, at that time, I really didn't know much about the business at all. And I was just sitting down and meeting with agents and really seeing who I vibed with. And some agents, I remember, would say things, well, we don't really take on baby writers. You don't have any credits, but, we could hip pocket you and, see if we can get you a gig. And if so, and I was like, oh, okay. But the agent that I ended up signing with was like, I think you're hilarious. You're super talented. I want to represent you. I'm going to hustle for you. I'm going to get you the best job that I can. And then he did. So years later, you develop a sort of experience in the industry where you sort of know where people are coming from in meetings, what their motivations are, what you need to say, what you should say, the things you need to ask. Back then, I was just green and I was the belle of the ball. I mean, everybody wanted to dance with me. But that was another lucky thing. Well, maybe there was luck too, but also a little bit I have to take a little bit of credit in that I picked the right agent. And it wasn't so much because I was strategic about it. In the business, you can click with people like as friends, romantically or business wise. And I really clicked with this guy, and he got me, and he did an amazing job.
You also have to give yourself credit for you saw an opportunity to kind of pitch yourself as a writer and you took it. And
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, I just wrote this book called How to Be a Screenwriter, and there's a chapter called How to Break In, and I break it down into needing a combination of hard work, talent, luck, and chutzpah.
yes.
And you really need all of those. And I put in the hard work of writing a whole bunch of really bad features before I started writing comedy specs. And then I had the talent I was good at comedy. People were like, oh, this is what you should be writing. And these scripts were well received. I had the luck to have a friend from college who was Matt and Trey's assistant and get me a job on the show. But it was really the chutzpah of driving around with Trey and being like, hey, I can finish that script. Or even just saying, hey, do you guys need a writer's assistant? I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, finding opportunities, making opportunities, leveraging your connections. And I always go back to usefulness, the way you made yourself useful to them and the way you framed this as not, hey, give me a shot, but let me help you. Let me take things off your plate. And, through that, I mean, obviously you saw an opportunity and you went for it.
And that's a lesson for people in all industries, both starting out and experienced, which is, if you want to advance in your job and have your bosses appreciate you and hire you and give you a raise, promote you or whatever, make yourself a solution to their problem, right? It's not enough just to say, what do you need me to do? You need to find out what they need and then do it. And then you got a real shot.
Yeah.
And by the time you joined that 70s show, had you thought of yourself as a comedy writer, or were you following opportunities as they presented themselves?
Right. Well, when I was starting out after college and before I got this break, I had written 5 or 6 features. I didn't think of myself as a comedy writer. I was writing serious movies with serious themes and very little comedy. It was my friend who got me the job on South Park who said, You're a funny guy. Why don't you write a comedy?" So I started writing comedy specs. I wrote a Simpsons, I wrote a Seinfeld, and I was like, okay, this is funny. I can be funny. And then when I got the South Park was not your classic like kind of network comedy show, but when I got the job on that '70s show, I'm sitting here at the end of this table full of amazingly talented people who had worked on shows like Sybil and Third Rock from the Sun, full of a room of comedians, stand-ups, improv people, actors, performers, and I realized like these are my people. I'm going to be a comedy writer.
Was there a level of intimidation, when
Oh
you walk
yeah,
in?
it was a high level of intimidation. I mean, these people were so funny and sharp and smart and used to in sort of an improv way, bouncing boom bam boom, like we're playing a game here. And I was not used to that at all. I had no experience with improv or performing or anything, and it was very intimidating. And it took a slow kind of process. In fact, there's another chapter in my book about how to be in a writer's room where we're at the end of the table with the kids and the grown-ups are on the other side, and you're there because they want you there, but you have to learn how to contribute. And like we'd be doing a rewrite and I would think of a joke and I would turn to the guy next to me and be like, what do you think of this? And they might laugh a little bit, and then somebody next to them might be like, what do you say? And then we would pitch there, and then all of a sudden the showrunner was like, what are you guys laughing about? And then you pitch it, and then you're like, that's good. And that sort of gives you a little more confidence to get to the point where you can start to pitch and participate a little more.
So break down how that writer's room operated for people who haven't been staffed in a writer's room yet.
Right. Well, writing staff, at least at that time, was like being in an army of comedy. We were producing 22 episodes a year. At the beginning of the season, we'd come in, the showrunners at the head of the table, writer's assistant in the middle, and then peppered around with all the from co-EPs down to staff writers. And every day we would have a direction. We'd be breaking stories for the new season. We would be looking at an outline somebody wrote. We would be going over a draft. We would be coming back from a rehearsal. We would be looking at network run-through notes. And there's a real hierarchy where the showrunner will set the tone of what they want to do. And it's our job as people in the army to follow those orders uh, to achieve what the showrunner wants to achieve. But at the same time, maybe bringing in our own flavor. And as you move up the ranks, you get maybe some more equity to be able to pitch ideas you've come up originally. But it can be difficult sometimes for people to. Some people have an inherent need to maybe rebel against that, or to pitch away from what's going on, or to fight what they want as opposed to what the collective wants. So there's a balance to be had there. But essentially, you're a team, and it's a team game. It's not like you're not playing tennis one on one against an opponent. You're playing basketball, and you're all working together to win.
And you said you were on the show for all 8 seasons, right?
Yeah.
So I would be remiss if I didn't ask, and feel free to tell me if this isn't something you want to explore, but if you could you talk about how the writer's room dealt with Topher Grace and Ashton Kutcher leaving, I think around season 6?
Ashton left, I think, on the second to last season. I think Topher left for the last season. But the nature of that business at the time, syndication was the goal. If you were able to make 200 episodes of a show, you could then go and sell it in reruns. And so it was a classic sitcom trope where like we're not going to just stop making it because one character leaves. We're going to bring in another character. In fact, it was a Josh Myers, really funny, talented actor who came in on the eighth season to replace Topher, which was very difficult to come in on the eighth season of the show and be like the new interest because he had faced so much backlash. But the nature of the job was that, hey, we're going to keep producing these because we got to get to 200. So creatively, what can we do? And you also run into the issue of sort of the Friends issue, like everybody slept with everybody. We've done all the permutations because what drives those kind of shows? It's the relationships, the twists, the turns, the breakups, the get back togethers. So when those guys left, there was no ill will or animosity. I mean, they were super talented, successful, guys who had opportunities to do bigger and better things. And it was our job just to work with what we had and to keep the wheels turning.
I mean, and honest, when you think about it, it was actually your fault that Ashton left because he got the he got the role on your major movie,
Right,
and
right. But
boom,
Ashton particularly,
he's a movie star.
but also he had just such seichel, we call it in Yiddish. It's such a drive and smarts that he was producing. He's producing Punked. He's producing shows, then he got into tech. So, I mean, dude was like a launch pad for a lot of people. It was a nice career run for a lot of people. But he certainly ran with it way beyond anything that I could have done for him.
Yeah, he was the first celebrity on Twitter, if I remember right, back in the olden days. Yeah, a very, very savvy guy.
Mhm.
And was that an opportunity to feel rejuvenated in any sense creatively, since you're adding a new variable to the ingredient here when you brought in Josh Myers?
Well, not really. I mean, the end of any sitcom, it can tend to run out of air. I mean, nowadays within the streaming area, there is no incentive to keep shows going. That's why you see shows go one season, maybe two seasons, and creatively they feel fresh. And you can tell when you're in the second or third season of a show now, you're like, oh, wait a second, it's not as good as it used to be. And we ran into that problem. So creatively, the challenge was to keep telling new and different stories. Um, but at a certain point, it does feel like you're going to work and you're making a widget and you're doing it because they're paying you well and people still want to buy the widget.
And so timeline wise, you were already on that 70s show when you wrote Dude, Where's My Car? Or was
Yeah.
that okay? Like
Yeah.
early on, right? Into it?
I think it was the first season of the show.
Wow.
I'm a staff writer
Yeah.
and everybody, co-executive producer and above was involved in the bigger meetings, the editing, the casting. So there was a lot of times when I wasn't needed in the room. So I would come in early in the morning, and then during times when I wasn't in the room, I would just sit in my office and I would write features because there was something really creatively fulfilling about having a day job where I was working in the army of comedy, learning how it works, doing what was expected of me, but also only what was expected of me, and then being able to go off and be like, I'm gonna write this fucking thing that I think is funny. I don't know what it is, but I'm just gonna go with it, and it's gonna be everything that I'm not allowed to do anywhere else. So something about that duality helped me do both.
All right. Well, let's get into the making of Dude, Where's My Car? Where was the original idea coming from?
Well, I had always loved like Cheech and Chong and the Marx Brothers, and I was writing these little bits about these two dudes before anything really gelled. In fact, one of my good friends, I'd go over to his place, we'd smoke weed, and then he would order Chinese food. And the woman he ordered Chinese food would always say, and then? And it would always work. We would always order something else. So I knew that was a bit. And then this same friend called me one day and said, dude, I need your help. I can't find my car. I went out on Friday. It's Tuesday and I still can't find it. And we drove around. We looked for his car. Turned out it was up off of La Brea and Sunset over by a place called, it used to be the Lava Lounge, which is where Moshi Malone's is over there in a little strip mall. Anyways, we found it. But that just became clear to me. Okay, that's it. These guys can't find their car, and then at the end they find their car. It's a very simple like road trip kind of movie. It starts here and it ends here, and that became the framework for me to then put these bits in the dude sweet tattoo thing, these sort of standalone, almost radio style, old school back and forths, and then sort of build around that.
I remember when I first came to LA and ordered Chinese food, and the person that was ordering from me asked me, and then.
Really?
Yes.
Maybe it was the same place.
I was, yeah. I mean, I grew up in Chicago, and so the Chinese food it never happened. It never happened out there. So I was just like, oh, this is just a funny thing from a movie. And then I moved to LA, and I was ordering Chinese food someplace like in Burbank or something, and the person taking my order is like, and then, and I'm just,
oh, that's great.
It took everything in me not to yell no and then.
I blame you, Phil.
Yeah, right. That's great. Well, it sells more Chinese food.
So writing the script, then actually getting in the hands of people who can make it. What was that part like?
That was, again, very easy and very lucky for me. I wrote this script. I didn't tell anybody I was writing it. I didn't pitch it to anybody. I wrote it and I called my agent, my TV guy, and I said, "Hey, I wrote this script." He said, "Send it over." I sent it over. The next week, I get a call from him and another guy who's the feature agent at this agency. And the guy says, "Hey, I'm your feature agent. I love the script. We're going to sell it." I was like, "Okay, great." Now, it went out wide. Everybody read it. I mean, it was a very popular read because it was like, what the fuck? It's called, what is it called? No, really, what is it called? It can't be called Dude, Where's My Car? And then people read it. And then the way it was written too, like the and then scene, I wrote that in a way that it went on so long. I mean, page after page. I wrote it so that people would turn the page and then read it and they can't keep going. And then they would turn like 3 pages ahead to see, okay, when does this end? It's much longer than it plays out because I wrote it for the read. But there was only one person who wanted to buy it, and it was a producer who had a deal with Alcon Entertainment, which was Fred Smith's, at the time, new production company, the FedEx guy. And it wasn't like Warner Brothers and 20th Century Fox were fighting over it. There wasn't a bidding war. It just takes one person to say yes, and luckily, one person said yes.
Did you write it with Ashton in mind for one of the roles?
No, no. What happened was after it sold, there was a whole development process, and then another producer came on who had to deal with 20th Century Fox, and then it went there, and then director came on, the ball got rolling, and then this was like the second season of the show, and all the cast is really getting noticed. I mean, the show's pretty popular. We got like a 2 season pickup. It was very successful. And the producer reaches out to me and say, "Hey, what about this Ashton kid? Like, is he funny? Would be good for this role?" And I said, "Absolutely. He's hilarious. He'd be perfect." So it wasn't like I directly worked with him or appealed to him about the movie. It really went roundabout, and it worked out well because he was perfect for the role, and because he was on the '70s show, they shot it during hiatus, which meant that that was also my hiatus, which made me available to participate as well.
Did
And you
he?
said
No, I just want to ask. Did he come? Did he? I guess what when he got that part, like, what was the interaction? Did he like come to you and be like, "Hey, is this you?" Or like, how did like what is the? I don't know. It
Well,
feels like there'd be a moment there.
Well, it's not like he came to me and said, "Let's really dive into this character. What is he? What makes him tick?" It was just right. It was just Ashton being taking the role on and bringing his Ashtonness to it. Um, it was just sort of cool. It was cool to like be at a run through and be talking to Ashton about the movie, and then have my showrunner be like, "Okay, hey guys, break it up. We got to talk about the TV show for a second here, if you don't mind." It was sort of fun. But it was, more on the set at least, in the moments when we had to rewrite something or write a new scene, because there was a lot of rewriting. The finished version of the movie is very different from the original script. It helped, I think, to have a relationship with Ashton to be able to not only have his trust that what I was writing was going to work, but also to know a little bit of his voice from seeing what he was so good with on that '70s show and incorporating that into the movie.
At what point did Fabio come into the picture?
Fabio was a last minute thing. I think that, we were in production, and I think the director turned to me one day and said, "Hey, we can get Fabio on Thursday." Okay. And so I wrote this very basic scene, sort of 3-bit comedy, no dialogue. Like it was Fabio proof. It was perfect for Fabio. And it's those kind of things that happen. You can put so much work into writing a script, thinking about it, planning it. The gestation period can be so long, but then the day of shooting or the week before, something can happen that you just do by the seat of your pants that can end up being more memorable than all the stuff you put in so much work to.
Can you talk about the differences between the script and the movie, or the scenes that got left out?
Yes, absolutely. Well, in the original spec, everybody's smoking weed, right? Everybody's getting high. In the finished version, the only person who you see smoke any weed is a dog. Okay, so that's a big point at the beginning. Um, in the original spec, the villain was Soleil Moon Frye, Punky Brewster. And I just picked some random celebrity who you would never think would be a villain, and I wrote her into it. And she was this evil genius who was trying to take over the planet. That got shelved, obviously. And there wasn't much of a through line emotionally. I mean, the producer, his big thing with me was like, what's the emotional through line for the guys, the dudes? Uh, the arc with them becoming good boyfriends became stronger. And even as flimsy as it ended up being, it was important to have that emotional through line, that the characters change kind of thing, which when I was writing it in the first place, I didn't give a shit about that. I was just like, these guys get stoned, they do funny things, and then it ends with a bang. Even though it's not your classic structured screenplay, it's much more streamlined in what people, audiences, and producers expect out of a screenplay than the original spec was.
I just remember it being I just remember like watching it as a kid and the initial premise just being I'm just finding it really weird. Like I come in, I think it was playing like on cable, came in like this is so weird. What is it? Like stoner guys and like they lost their car. And then I decided I'm like, well, I want to see where if they find their car. And then and then there's the Chinese food, and then there's Fabio, and then all of a sudden there's aliens, and like the way that the story pulls you through, like the way that like it keeps setting up like these questions that you're like, this is weird. I need to know how it ends. This is weird. I need to know how this resolves. I think it's like, I think as you said, like it's like those little like it's like the radio show sort of moments where it's like you've got your sort of beginning, middle, and end, and then it sort of restarts the process where like I need to figure out how this resolves. It actually was very like compelling for for as a film. Like what like as I was watching it, I'm just like I just need to get to the end of this because I
I
need to
love
know
that. That's great feedback,
where
right?
this goes.
That's what you would, I think, hope for an audience of any movie to feel like as they're watching it.
Your article in the Hollywood Reporter had me reflecting on the state of comedy, of theatrical comedy films, and you touch on the decline of studio comedies in general, and kind of, and the, quoting you from the article, in cheap, broad comedies for teenagers with disposable income. So I was wondering, looking back, do you have a diagnosis for why that kind of comedy film declined?
Well, I think on the one hand, there's just taste in society at the moment. I mean, there have always been cyclical natures of what's popular movie wise, gangster movies, war movies, westerns, Star Wars kind of epics. Um, there have always been kind of cyclical nature to that. And teen comedies certainly have, at that time, was a popular thing. And then there's also like the broader, like tectonic shifts in the industry in terms of uh, the decline of the box office and the consolidation of industry, of there being less buyers and less smaller companies willing to take risks. I mean, like I said, the one person who bought this movie when it was sold at spec was an independent producer with a deal at a at a production company from outsider, essentially. And those opportunities don't exist more nowadays because everybody seems to have sort of merged. I mean, there are fewer buyers, fewer distributors, and meaning I think people are willing to take fewer risks. I think it's both a combination of like just the shift in taste and what audiences like to see, and also the opportunities to make those movies overall just because of consolidation and the changes in the industry.
Yeah. Plus, I think those the what you said, like if like had that process happen, find an independent producer, going to an independent production company, like that film would just end up on Tubi.
Yeah, yeah. Or I might have just made it myself. I mean, I talk to a lot of screenwriters nowadays, and the idea of breaking in, it's not just about you can't just write a script. You got to write a script and then have a social media presence. And if your social media presence is good enough, maybe people are interested in seeing your script. But if you have a big enough social media presence, you can just make something on YouTube. And if that gets enough feedback, then maybe you're making the movie yourself.
I want to talk about Seriously, Dude, Where's My Car? The sequel that never was.
Right. Okay, good. Oh, well, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
The sequel to this movie was going to be called Seriously, Dude, Where's My Car? And it was frustrating because I always felt like this movie could exist as the title alone, regardless of the two stars. Now, Ashton and Sean are wonderful, but the idea that this could be a movie that we could make many versions of with two guys, two new guys every time was very appealing to me. But I think because of the nature of the logistics of who were producers, who had financial interests, how many entities had to agree together to do something, it never seemed to happen. And I did write the sequel. It was contractually obligated to, and it was wonderful to get paid to write another script. And that was basically a takeoff on like the beach movie, the spring break teen comedy of the 80s, where the dudes like are on spring break and they found out they inherited a hotel, and the big bad hotelier next door is going to buy their hotel and tear it down and build like a mall, but they have to have a fun, it was classic tropes with the dudes doing duty things. And that never got made. And then about 10 years later, uh, I got a call from the producer, and Ashton was interested again, and we were talking about it. And they had Ashton was married by that time, and then people thinking about having kids. And so, okay, what if the dudes are grown up? And then that became "Dude, Where's My Car Seat," which is about the dudes as dads, and they literally buy a car seat and they lose it, and the whole movie is about them looking for the car seat.
Is the kid in the car seat or is
No,
it?
no, no. This is the kids in the belly.
Oh, okay.
Um, and then even more recently, we even talked about doing a dude musical, right? Like, oh, Dude, Where's My Car? The musical. And so there've always been iterations every now and then where we talk about it. And in fact, I'm sure maybe as a result of some of the hype about this 25th anniversary, although I don't know if hype is the right word, but just the fact that that is happening might lead us to then talk about, okay, what are the dudes doing now? What would that be like? We never really got made the sequel at all that I would have liked to see, but it does keep coming up every now and then, bubbles to the surface. I'm not sure if anything will really happen with it, but it's nice to kick that ball around again.
Yeah. At this point, you could do it with like the kids. Like the kids are grown up and don't.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean,
They're like vaping shit.
dude, where's my dad?
Well, I mean, that makes me think about that 90s show, right? I mean, that was you know,
And that turned out great, right?
Yeah. That was an amazing season.
I thought it was 2 seasons.
Was it?
Oh gosh. Well, just the fact that we can't remember is an indicator.
Well, like you said, that just represented the drastic change in the environment for sitcoms of that 70s show ilk, right?
Mhm.
Because I mean, the pieces were there. I thought that was a very young, charismatic cast. Topher, Ashton, Mila. I think all of the cast members who are not in prison came back for that show and had very, handed off the baton. So, I mean, the ingredients were there.
Well, just to speak to that point, your point, the goal of that 70s show that the producers and the creators were always very cognizant of was we're not just making jokes about bell bottoms and shag carpet. We're telling a story about teenagers in love and growing up, right? And then the jokes come naturally out of that. The network, when it came to that 90s show, doesn't not appreciate quite often the nuances of where true comedy comes from, and we're more excited about all the funny 90s stuff we could do. So the very first joke, I think, in the very first scene of that 90s show is a guy on a giant brick cell phone being like, no, I'm on a phone and I'm not, there's no cord, it's cord, there's what. And looking back, we could tell that maybe that was not an indicator that it was going to be as successful as that 70s show. Even though there were a lot of really talented and amazing people who worked on it and created it.
Yeah, but not the network, right? The Netflix, right? That was a Netflix original, right?
Wait, yeah, I've been talking
Are you talking about that 80s show?
I'm talking about that 80s show.
Oh,
I'm mixing up my decades.
Okay.
Yes. Now, okay.
Did you work on the 80s show?
No, but it was being produced concurrently. See, that tells you how old I am. I can remember all those decades.
You remember.
That 90s show, yes. The 90s show was really interesting because, like you said, it's Netflix, different production model, brand new cast, bringing all different people together, wonderful cast, talented newcomers. And we could say it wasn't as successful as that 70s show, which is no horrible thing. And it went for 2 seasons. It did. And it was great seeing Red and Kitty and then all the stars who were available to show up and participate. But I mean, in general, that just also speaks to the nature of multi-camera comedy and how that was always on the decline. I mean, in 1998, when the '70 Show premiered, multi-camera shows were the unit of worth for television comedy, and there were four on every network on every night of the week. And then single camera shows became very popular. And then I think people sort of saw multicam and laugh tracks and that kind of particular acting style you need to do on a sitcom is stilted and old. And I think that contributed to maybe audiences, maybe even though that '90s show was a great idea, talented people both in front of and behind the camera, it just didn't hit the same as an office kind of mockumentary show, which really became the new unit of worth in terms of television comedy.
When did you see like the writing on the wall of that?
Well, after I left that '70s show,
The big phone.
yeah,
You said
after that '70s show, I had several years of pilot deals. I sold pilots, I pitched shows, I wrote shows. I also continued to write features and both pitches and specs, but nothing ever really caught on. Nothing ever really hit. And as the years went by, I kept writing, I kept generating new material, I kept putting myself out there. I did everything that you're supposed to do, but I just didn't achieve that same level of success. And not only that, but I became more and more unhappy doing it to the point where it was starting to affect my writing and my attitude. Like I was resentful and I was bitter and I was not having fun. But it was very difficult to see myself doing anything differently because it was all I'd ever known. And I'd had so much success early in my career. Everybody around me was like, well, Phil, you did that. You did it. You can do it again. You've done it already. But it really felt like I was trying to break in all over again. And it's hard enough to break in once. It's much harder to even break in a second time. And once I could really appreciate that I was really unhappy doing what I was doing, I could think about doing something else. But then I was unhappy because I couldn't think of anything else to do. I mean, when you're a sitcom writer, that doesn't really give you many employable qualities for other industries. But something that I was always interested in was psychology. I've been in therapy at various points in my life, as a kid, in my early 20s, late 20s, when I was married, after I got divorced. So I valued that experience, and I decided to go back to school. And the turning point, I had switched agencies over the years. You know, when you're hot shit and you have great credits, agents can do a lot for you. When you're not working, you don't have any recent credits, they really can't do much. So I had moved down from agency to agency, smaller and smaller, and eventually I had like an independent manager who I had shown a bunch of specs to, and they liked one, and they sent it out, and they got some kind of a commitment from an actor who had relationships in a foreign country that they were going to finance it, and for some network that was I'd never heard of, and they all I had to do was put together a pitch deck, which I'd never done before. I mean, back then you just write a script, or if you pitch, you're on the couch with this magic trick of a pitch that when you leave, it's ethereal and it's gone, right?
Mhm.
So I'd never made a pitch deck, so I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll make a pitch deck. So I Googled how to make a pitch deck. I dragged and dropped some photos. I put on some music, and I sent it along to her. And she calls me back and she says, essentially, hey, I took a look at this pitch deck and it looks like you really half-assed it. It's not so good. And I said, yeah, I half-assed it. It's really not that good. And she said, well, do you want to make it better? And I said, I don't think I do. And she basically said, but I don't understand. If this is good and we sell it, then you will get to be the showrunner, which is your goal, right? And in that moment, I realized that even though that had been my goal for the last 20 years, in this moment, it wasn't something that I wanted. And it was in that moment that I realized that I really was going to move on and do something else. So there's a long, slow period of wandering in the desert, but it was that moment that sort of was the midpoint of that desert that sort of crystallized the direction that I wanted my life to go in.
So were you like, I'm not working on it anymore? Or did you?
No, I said, listen, keep trying to sell the specs. I'm not generating any new material. No more thinking about pilot stories or third act twists for me. I'm going back to graduate school. And if I do write something, it's going to be a book. I mean, I wrote a book about therapy called Dude, Where's My Car? Catharsis. And I always had that title in mind. As soon as my friends found out I was going to grad school, they were like, okay, well, you got to use this title. So I always knew I was going to write something, keep writing, but I was no longer thinking in terms of scripts.
So are you now a therapist for, it says you're a family therapist, but are you a therapist for screenwriters?
Well, the technical term for my license says is marriage and family therapist. That's the way it's listed in California. In other states, they're called counselors, mental health counselors, whatever. But I see everybody who would like to see a therapist. Now, I do specialize in working with creative people, writers, screenwriters, because that's the background that I come from. And I have a lot of experience with the issues they're going through, in the same way that a therapist who used to be an executive and got burned out and became a therapist might work with people who were executives and who were burned out. So a lot of therapists come to that career as sort of a second career, a second part of life career. And they often work with a population of people who are in jobs or industries or situations that they experienced before they became therapists. So, yeah, I do work with a lot of screenwriters.
I love the excerpt from your book where you talked about like the creative sort of crop rotation that you need to do in order to sort of circumvent like writer's block.
Yeah.
Working and writing can be very taxing, and then going off and doing something else that's creative can sort of and like re-energize you in that way so that you can sort of come back. I thought that was really fascinating.
Well, thanks. I'm glad you mentioned that because I think that's the thing about this book that I wrote that is different from most screenwriting books is that it's not about how to structure a screenplay. It's not about what beats to hit. It's not about the character's journey. It's about the things that we experience as we are on this journey of being screenwriters, which include things like dealing with writer's block or imposter syndrome or having a strong inner critic. And these are things that I've experienced personally that I work with my clients on, whether they're screenwriters or not often, and things that in the book I can talk about in a way that helps people become better screenwriters, even though we're not figuring out what the best third act twist is or what character's arc should be in what page.
We're just going to pull out a therapist couch.
Yeah.
We'll take turns laying on
No.
it. Because, what you wrote in the excerpt that we featured on our blog section hit for me at a really particular time in my own writing because I was facing some burnout myself, which feels like pretty habitual, pretty routine for a lot of screenwriters, like post COVID, like just managing all those conflicting emotions and all the dread and existential anxiety. So I was wondering if is there a piece of advice that you've given to your screenwriting clients over the years that you've found has been particularly reassuring or has only gotten more and more helpful as time has gone on?
I think the thing that I think of when you ask that question is not like advice on how to persevere or a trick to succeeding, but it's really more about like deciding what to write. Uh, and I really enjoy like, if I'm working with a client and they're talking about the script that they have to be writing, that they're having a hard time with and not enjoying, but then they maybe mention this stupid idea that they had that made them laugh that they would love to write, but that's crazy because it would never get made. Um, I'm always like, okay, that's the script that we should be writing, right? A lot of screenwriters, rightly so, write towards the marketplace. And, if horror movies are hot, you got to write your take on a horror movie. Or for romantic comedies or reliable sellers, write a romantic comedy. But it's really the scripts that we write that nobody else would ever tell us to write, that nobody else would encourage us to write. I mean, when I wrote Dude, Where's My Car? If I pitched to my agents, hey, okay, I'm going to write this script about these two guys and they get so stoned the night before they can't find their car, they would probably have been like, well, that sounds funny, Phil, but romantic comedies are big right now. And, we could sell a romantic comedy. And I might have written a romantic comedy and not written that movie. But the point of writing that movie was to write something for myself that I liked, that I thought was funny, regardless of what anybody else thought, with the idea that if other people liked it, I might get a meeting and somebody might want to meet me and hire me to write a script from something that they had been developing because they wanted my take and my voice on it. Luckily, I sold it and it got made. But that's the kind of advice that I think instead of helping screenwriters like sort of power through a difficult script that they're having a hard time writing, I like to, in the same way that writer's block is often best avoided by stop trying to defeat it. I love to find out from writers the stupidest, silliest, most never could be produced idea and encourage them to write that, because it's those kind of scripts I think that really help writers break in, because they're so different and fresh, and the kind of thing nobody would ever write that really get noticed sometimes.
Last one for me. Are you completely done writing for the industry, or do you see yourself coming back in any capacity? Are you
I
still
mean,
writing screenplays yourself?
well, it's interesting you asked, because this article I wrote for The Reporter about the 25th anniversary of Dude had a section where I talk about these three projects that I wrote and sold when I was a screenwriter that never got made. And the producer of Dude reached out to me and said, I love the article. I want to read these scripts.
Oh,
Right. And I was like, absolutely. But I know that I'm not interested in writing them. Like, I would love to work if for instance, if we were going to do a Dude TV show, right? I don't think I have the passion or the desire to sit down and create that show, but I would work with younger writers who remember that show, the movie, and liked it, and have their take and a passion for an idea that they want to do. I would still participate in the industry, but more as a producer, I think, as a mentor, maybe. But the idea of me sitting down and typing fade in and opening up final draft is just not something that appeals to me now. That might change. I mean, listen, if I could get back in the guild and get back on the guild health insurance, that could change my calculus.
It
that was
sounds like you are still an active participant in the industry if you're helping guide a lot of screenwriters to that script that can break them through or really further their career, or just if they walk out with a mindset that will help them finish that script.
No, you're right. I mean, I still have a foot in the business, I guess, in that I work with people in the business, but it's changed in the way that, like, I no longer have a movie to pitch or a
Mhm.
spec I want somebody to read, because I've sort of written myself out of that, and the writing that I do now that I'm most excited about are my books. I mean, you talk about screenwriters needing to have a voice, and that voice is often, displayed through their characters, but the writing I'm doing now is my voice, and I'm writing in the first person, and I really find that rewarding, and I'm getting a lot of good feedback, so I think that's where my passion lies.
That's good. Well, I mean, it sounds like you did everything right, but I was wondering if there was something that you know now that you wished you knew then that would help guide you.
Yes, great question. And again, this is another chapter in my book, but it's about having an agent. And I was very lucky to get an agent at a young age with a lot of career heat. And I was only too happy to give responsibility for my career to that agent, which meant that I did not have to put myself out there. I did not have to call up people I didn't know. I did not have to talk to people about needing a job. I didn't have to break the ice and go to mixers. And at a certain point, when my agent could no longer do anything for me, I was really out in the cold because I didn't really have people. I mean, there were situations where I would see in the trades that somebody I knew sold a pilot, and I would call my agent and say, "Hey, you should call that person. They sold a pilot, and I know them." Instead of just picking up the phone and calling the person saying, "Hey, you sold a pilot, great, I'm available," because for whatever reason I was just felt scared or vulnerable about admitting that I needed help or that I wasn't working.
No.
Now that I'm a therapist, I am my own agent. And I call up people all the time. I talk to people I don't know. I go to mixers. I reach out. I email you guys. I'm doing all this on my own, and I'm passionate about it and I enjoy it. And that's something that if I could go back in time and tell my younger self, I would tell that myself. But I don't think my younger self would be able to do anything about it, because that's the kind of thing that often takes maturity and time and life and the wisdom of experience to understand that it's okay to not be too cool for school. It's not to admit that you need help. It's okay to feel like you're gonna come off as dorky talking to somebody. So yeah, on the one hand, that's something I would have liked to have done when I was younger, but at the same time, I just wasn't capable of doing that.
Well, I'm going to ask the question we always ask our guests at the end. What is the film, TV show, book, any piece of media that inspired you to get into this business in the first place?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, seeing as we talked about Dude a lot, I have to go with the Marx Brothers. I mean, the comedy of came essentially from stage, of three guys standing together, wordplay, witty, playing off of each other in front of a live audience. I think was something that always appealed to me. And that's something that I enjoyed doing, working in multicam, right? And writing all the other multicams pilots that I did, but also with Dude, incorporating that kind of Marx Brothers through the lens of Cheech and Chong, that ended up being Dude. And the irony is that I got to work with Tommy Chong on 70 Show. And I'll tell you a quick story. I always dreamed of getting high with Tommy Chong, right? For any stoner, that's like the dream. So when he would do shows, when he would tape, I would always make sure I had a joint in my office, and I would write on the joint, I would write Tommy. And my dream was that at some point I'd be sitting next to Tommy, and we'd be shooting the shit at craft service, and we'd talk about getting high, and I'd say something like, "I got a joint with your name on it, Tommy." And then I would go get it and we would smoke it. But that never happened, and I would just smoke the joint on the way home. So,
There's still time.
yeah.
Yeah.
We just learned, I just learned doing research for this episode that Cheech and Chong came out with the movie this year.
Yeah,
April.
they've had so much success and then went apart and went their separate ways, and then they came back together. I thought it was really nice to see that evolution of their partnership.
If somebody wants to start reading your books, where should they start?
Well, if you go to my link tree, all my books are on Amazon. You can just Google Phil Stark Amazon too. Two books on therapy. One is called Dude, Where's My Catharsis? It's about individual therapy. I have a book called How to Win at Couples Therapy, which is about couples therapy. And then there's How to Be a Screenwriter, which is about not just my personal experience with the work of being a screenwriter, but also the kind of advice we're talking about, not just about how to write a script, but all the other things you need to do to be able to be successful as a screenwriter.
Yeah, so if you're listening or watching, check out the description for all of those links, and make sure to check out Phil's books. And if you're in California and in need of a therapist, maybe
You can look him up.
Yeah.
I can imagine that there'll be a lot of screenwriters will be hitting you up after this.
Hopefully, it's interesting. I love my story going from this guy who wrote this silly stoner comedy to like a person who's a therapist. And I can see how there might be a conflict there in some people's minds, but honestly, I love being a therapist. The most fascinating and well-rounded characters of all are ourselves. And part of my work with screenwriters is an exploration of themselves as characters so they can understand why they do and say the things they do and say, and which helps them then create more compelling and real characters.
I love that.
No, so good.
Yeah, that's the perfect closing note. Okay, well, thanks for watching, listening to this latest episode of Human First, the Roadmap Writers podcast. Again, I'm Gabriel Tice.
I'm GT Cruz.
I'm Nicole Betts.
Okay, see you guys next time.